So today I want to look, as you can see the title there on your screen, there's some uses and effects of anti-racist songs. Why are anti-racist songs produced and what effect do they have? But first of all, just a word in memory of Thomas Mensforth, a great anti-racist punk rocker who actually died this week. This is a talk with three concepts. Here they are: genre constraints, co-narration, and micro encouragements. Watch out for them. There may be a short test at the end. So I want to look at some answers to this question: why are anti-racist songs produced and what effect do they have? Now, a number of researchers have worked on large anti-racist campaigns which have used the street legitimacy of some popular music over the last few decades, in Britain in particular, to fight against racist prejudice and racist organizations. The most recent one in the United Kingdom is Love Music, Hate Racism. It was set up in 2002 and is still active. You can see organizing in 2021-22 a Rebel music tour, and here you can see a festival from 2009. Now, British anti-racist organizations connected with music go back to the 1950s and the Stars campaign for interracial friendship, whose history has recently been published. And then, of course, there is the far better known Rock Against Racism of the 1970s, which has been examined both from an analytical university point of view and also from a rather nostalgic point of view, and was really had quite wide influence and a certain number of international effects. Now, this is not really what I'm going to concentrate on. Of course, many musicians and artists involved in anti-racist campaigns do not write and sing songs about racism in general. Songs are not written to command. But today I want to look at anti-racist songs and what they might do for us, because they are very different from other sorts of anti-racist communication, such as the anti-racist leaflet or the anti-racist article, or indeed the demonstration slogan. So I've been looking at a series, a corpus of about 80 British songs over the last 50 years, but I will only be commenting on a few of them today, some of them very well known. So what can we say about these, how these songs deal with racism and about what effect they might have on the listener? Well, to explore this, I want to introduce two concepts. The first of these is genre constraints. To help us talk about popular songs, as you know, we divide them into musical genres: disco, country, punk, glam, reggae, folk, rap, metal, skiffle, just to name a few. And each genre tends to communicate and celebrate a certain number of ethical or aesthetic values. So classic punk groups tend to have names which underline conflict and reject respectability: the Sex Pistols, the Stranglers, the Buzzcocks, the Clash, the Damned. And the punk aesthetic is the aesthetic of the loser and or of the rebel. Now, such aesthetic and ethical values and priorities condition the likely treatment of racism by punk bands. So the Scottish punk band Oi Polloi sing the following in their 1999 song. So oi polloi there, with the particularly characteristic use of the voice with the music. This is naturally mostly theatre, in that the opportunities to listen to this music are considerably more frequent than opportunities to take the advice literally. So we see that the punk aesthetic tends to insist on treating the sharpest conflicts available within anti-racist discourse. The importance of studying African literature as well as European literature in our schools is unlikely to inspire a punk rock song. Genre constraints allow certain treatments of questions of racism and discourage others. If we look, for example, at the glam rock genre, whose priorities were the theatrical performance of individual identity and the playful or mysterious use of androgynous identities, we are not surprised not to find many glam rock anti-racist songs. The rules of the genre constraints, if you like, tend to exclude political songs. Another example of genre constraints, if you are looking for songs praising the heroes of past struggles against racism and fascism, you are more likely to find folk songs than punk songs. Because the idea of celebrating what people in the past did correctly does not fit so well with the punk aesthetic. But I have here this song from a folk singer, Christy Moore, praising the international brigades from the Spanish Civil War.
Bob Hilliard was a Church of Ireland pastor. From Killarney across the Pyrenees he came. From Derry came a brave young Christian brother. Side by side they fought and died in Spain. Tommy Woods, age 17, died in Cordoba. With the Fianna he learned to hold his gun. From Dublin to the Via del Grio, where he fought and died beneath the blazing sun. Viva la Quinta Brigada, the passer and the pledge that made them fight. Adelante is the cry around the hillside. Let us all remember them tonight.
In particular, that last line, the directly commemorative last line, seems particularly appropriate to a folk discourse and not to others. Nevertheless, such genre constraints are not absolute. For example, the synth pop genre from the late 70s had as a central objective producing new sounds with new instruments and making danceable music. Political content was rare. Nevertheless, this 1981 song from Heaven 17 is an exception.
You heard it on the news about this fascist group thing. Evil men with racist views spreading all across the land. Don't just sit there on your ass and look at funky chain dance. Brothers, sisters, shoot your best. We don't need this fascist group thing.
So even within genres which are not generally appropriate for anti-racist songs, this can be done. Interestingly, in this song, fascism is presented as an undesirable style of dancing, and the contrast with the punk or folk staging of the question is striking. The second concept which will help us speak of what anti-racist songs can do is that of co-narration. Transferring information, a message cannot be at the center of popular song, because song is a very particular type of cultural production. It is tremendously repetitive. We have listened to our favorite songs hundreds of times, whereas an anti-racist leaflet is intended to be read only once or twice. Even the most documentary sounding anti-racist song, therefore, is centered around emotional embodied experience and is not centered around the transfer of information. In particular, one important aspect of the experience of consuming popular music is that of singing along, whether at the concert or in the shower, at karaoke or in the kitchen, singing along with the whole song or just with the chorus, singing along alone or as a group. Even when we do not sing along aloud, we may sing along silently, as we often know the words by heart. So popular song I like to see as participatory theatre, as role play. The songwriter proposes a role which they believe the audience will want to play for 3 minutes. And if we play these roles while singing along, they are embodied in our breathing, in our voice and our gestures, our moving or dancing. And it seems to me that this allows us to be highly involved with the role we are playing. We become the co-narrator. And in popular song, this role playing is an emotional experience and often repeated or even ritualized. The chorus may be repeated several times. The song might be co-narrated or co-experienced hundreds of times. These role plays have a strong entertainment element, but may very much be educational too, as we will see. So what are some of the roles which anti-racist songs can involve, and what force do they have? Well, a first possibility is that the narrator may be somebody who is targeted by racism. And here we have an example from Ruthless Rap Assassins.
And it wasn't a dream. This was a nightmare.
Mom's looking tired. That's getting old. They've been here for 30 years, but still ain't seen no shoes so cold. Mom packed her cases at the age of 19. She was gonna go to England. She would live like the queen. She would build her own house. She would raise no kids. Sometimes I know she wishes that she never did. But what's done is done.
So we can see here that as long as the song lasts, we all play. This is what I believe, that we all play the role of this narrator. We identify very closely, and it pleases us whether we are Black or not. We are valorizing ordinary Black experience by singing about it. The following verses in this song recount the racism experienced by the narrator's parents. Another possibility is that the narrator may take a position of a radical activist. The 2002 song by Asian Dub Foundation is one example. It's called Fortress Europe. And I've lost it somewhere. Just hold on for a moment. No, I'm afraid I don't actually have this one. But you can look at the lyrics there. What we have here is something rather specific. In the chorus, "Keep banging on the walls of Fortress Europe," the co-narrator is to loudly encourage refugees and other migrants to come to Europe. The narration presents a position of which the logic is to open the borders. Now, in Britain and also in other countries, this opinion is much more of a minority opinion than vague denunciations of racism. So what happens here is the song pushes co-narrators to identify with and invest in a position which is likely to be more radical than their own political opinion. In this way, perhaps the radical position becomes more familiar to the audience. In a similar manner, the song I quoted a few minutes ago, "Let the Boots Do the Talking," allows the public, the co-narrator, to play the role of someone who has the habit of fighting with fascists in the streets. Something which only a small proportion of listeners are lucky enough to be able to do regularly in real life. By Asian Dub Foundation, in any case, by making more familiar this position, those who come illegally, they are right, perhaps allows to provoke political reflection. Another example here is a song from the Specials in 1983, which is a song entitled "Racist Friend." Again, the narrator is an anti-racist commentator. So this is a fascinating example. Racists here are denounced, as often in anti-racist songs, but contrary to many representations of racists, in this case, they are presented as people close to us, friends or family, and the song suggests breaking links with such people, whatever their place in our lives. The co-narrator is asked to broadcast this demand. It is an ambitious demand. It may be that it is hyperbolic, since hyperbole is central to popular cultural expression in general. Further, the joyful, gentle music accompanying the demand suggests an atmosphere less polarized than breaking links with your family. The role play, though, encourages us to make this demand, to see what this demand feels like. The song is to make us think and to underline that it is unacceptable to not react to racism around us, even when it comes from people very close to us. At the other extreme, if you like, from the point of view of the narrator, one can have narrators and narrations which are perceived as anti-racist, but which are very far from calling to combat racism. Here is a very early one from the group Blue Mink from 1969.
Take a picture, white man, wrap it up in black skin, add a touch of blue blood, and a little bitty bit of red Indian blood.
Okay, so then we have the voice, and you have in front, the verse, and then we have in front of you the chorus. I think it's very important when you begin to analyze a song to look at what the words mean. Literally, the lyrics of the song do not speak of the importance of opposing racism or combating racism. They propose a fantasized solution to the existence of racial disharmony by the destruction of peoples of differing ethnicities and the production of a homogeneous coffee-colored humanity. It might sound more an expression of demoralization than of opposition. Nevertheless, when the song was released, it was perceived as anti-racist, perhaps for two reasons. First of all, unusually at the time, the group Blue Mink had both white and black members. And secondly, the different ethnic groups in the song are treated equally, even if they are equally fated for destruction. This song got to number 3 in the UK singles charts, and it may well be that the consensual regretting of racial disharmony allowed this, that this is not a very challenging narrator in a way. Similar in consensual positioning, but less fantasy driven, is the best-selling 1982 song of Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney, Ebony and Ivory, which reached number 1 in both the UK and US charts. Even in 2013, it ranked 69th on a Billboard ranking of the top 100 songs of all time. Now, although it was eventually banned in apartheid South Africa, where it must have been perceived as a threat of some kind, its narration is limited to regretting the existence of racial disharmony. Indeed, the piano metaphor poses racism almost as inexplicable, and certainly not as targeted against an oppressed group. Now, the co-narrator then can be an activist, somebody targeted by racism, or a universal exterior commentator. There's just 3 of the examples, there are many more. Now, the co-narrator can occasionally be constituted ironically, or to say it in another way, the author, the songwriter, can propose a racist narrator who we are intended to mock. And we have here an example from the 1970s by Tom Robinson.
Freedom, the reds and the blacks and the criminals, prostitutes, pansies and punks, football hooligans, juvenile delinquents, lesbians and left-wing scum. Freedom from the niggers and the packers and the unions, freedom from the gypsies and the Jews, freedom from the long-haired layabouts and students, freedom from the likes of you.
Yeah, so you see, we get back to the anti-racist narrator in the second in the second part there. Now, we would need to reflect on the gratifications proposed to co-narrators by such occasional, ironically constituted racist narrators. Any anti-racist loves to see racists ridiculed in sketches or in cartoons, but the repetitive and emotional nature of popular song might make such ironic role plays distasteful, and indeed they are rare. So to conclude, we've been looking at preferred ways of appropriating popular songs which allow the artiste, consciously or not, to organize a role play in which the listener as co-narrator is involved. These role plays might educate, might reinforce and encourage anti-racist identities, or encourage listeners to imagine radical positionings. I have looked also at more recent songs by Low Key and other singers. The types of role play involved have not really changed. Now, I have mostly referred to the lyrics of the song since they are the easiest to speak about. The implication of the co-narrator is obviously, however, reinforced by the bodily activities of singing, rhythmic movement, dancing, clapping, nodding the head, and so on. The role play may last throughout the 3-minute song or for only 20 seconds of chorus. I think the best way of looking at most anti-racist songs is to see them as micro-encouragements to anti-racism. You may have heard of the concept of microaggressions, those little chunks of everyday oppressive treatment, the nasty look, the hesitation, the aggressive smile, all those things which wear down members of groups targeted by racism, sexism, or other oppressions. Well, micro-encouragements are exactly the opposite. Anti-racist songs, by valorizing the experience of oppressed groups, by valorizing the active rejection of racism, remind the anti-racist physically and repetitively that they are not alone, that there exists a community of anti-racists, an effective alliance, if you like, and all this helps anti-racists to not just give up and shut up. Thank you very much for listening.